Well, I think that the university keeps talking about reducing fertilizer consumption, reducing fertilizer runoff into the water. I think if people just went to the growers program, that would stop real quick.
Yeah, my name is Jim Halbeisen, and this is my opinion.
Very good. On today's podcast, I would like to introduce Dennis Grove. Dennis lives on the eastern shore of Maryland, on the eastern shore of the Delmarva, close to Salisbury, Maryland. And Dennis has been with us a very long time and was a chicken man at one time and farmed also and does a little repping for us now. So, Dennis, if you just kind of introduce yourself and tell everybody geographically where you live and talk a little bit about the type of farming you have on the Eastern Shore.
All right, I'm Dennis Grove, and as Jim said, I live on the eastern shore of Maryland, near Salisbury, Maryland, which is just about 7 miles below Delaware. So it's considered the lower eastern shore. I started with growers back in the late 70s. Wilbur Franklin was director of research then, a long time ago. But I remember my dad using growers when I was just a little boy. All I can remember was the green tank up on the lake, that far back. And then Dad got away from it. The rep passed away. I forget just what happened. But anyway, Dad went back to dry fertilizer. And then I moved down here with my wife, and land was cheaper down here. And my father-in-law was using growers. And so he introduced me to the area rep, which was Mark Schwarzentrooper. The old guys will remember him. He'd been passed away many years ago. And so at that time, I was farming a bit. We had an 80-acre farm, and I was farming that. And we had 40,000 broiler chickens that we took care of, which we moved out every 8 weeks approximately. And so Mark asked me if I would consider being a rep, and I said, yeah, I would. I said, I'm not a sales person, but if I can sell enough to pay for my own, I'll be happy. Well, that's where it started.
Sure.
And it went from there, and Mark invited me to go to Delaware Ag Week, a show in January. And so we did that. And it so happens that now we are the longest continuous exhibitor at that show since back in the early 80s.
Where's that show at, Dennis?
It used to be at Dover, Delaware. It's now at Harrington, Delaware, at the state fairgrounds. And it had been at multiple places. But now it's for the last 10 years or so, it's been at the state fairgrounds, and that's a good place right in the center of the state.
One thing I would like to talk a little bit about where Dennis lives. There's a tremendous amount of urban influx there from Washington, D.C. Dennis works with customers up in Delaware. That's on his back door. But, you know, the amount of farmland has disappeared quite dramatically, you know, due to development and that type of thing. And when I go to Dennis's and we do meetings, I mean, the traffic is just absolutely horrendous. So they have a lot of urban pressure. And can you comment a little bit, Dennis, about the chicken business? I mean, has that always been on the Eastern Shore since you started farming?
Yeah, that started actually back in like the late 1940s.
I see.
With a man by the name of Arthur Perdue, who was the father of Frank Perdue, who is the father of Jim Perdue, who is the current CEO of Perdue Farms. So that's been around for a long time. As far as the poultry industry, it's had many pressures from the environmental people, continual suits. They would sue poultry growers. They would sue poultry companies. And at the present time, I do not know of any new poultry houses being built on the eastern shore of Maryland or Delaware.
That's another thing sorry to interrupt there, Dennis, but one thing I want to bring forward is Dennis has got his CCA several years ago and has been writing nutrient management plans for local farmers. And that was one thing I wanted Dennis to kind of chat a little bit about, is the nutrient management plans and what they entail. It appears in some of the other states that we work in that nutrient management plans are in the near future. So, Dennis, if you could just chat a little bit about what that entails, what you do for farmers, and we know that farmers aren't always following exactly that line, but kind of give guys an idea of what a nutrient management plan entails and what you do for guys.
Okay, well, Maryland's nutrient management program is, to me, it's very strict. For example, if you farm 10 acres, you have to have a nutrient management plan. Or if you have a $2,500 gross income. So if you have an acre that you're growing some produce on to sell at a little stand in front of your house and you earn $2,500, you're caught up in this nutrient management planning also.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's pretty tight. Now, what do we need to develop a nutrient management plan? First, we need soil sample. Maryland dictates that you have to have a soil sample every 3 years from an approved lab. There's only about 5 approved labs. We have one here on the shore called AgriLab. That one's approved. University of Delaware, University of Pennsylvania. I believe Brookside is on there, but it's a lab that will do a Malik 3 soil test. So in addition to soil samples, we have to have manure samples if you're planning to use manure or you produce manure. There are some plans called no land plans that people just have poultry, but they don't farm anything, and they get rid of their poultry litter. So they have to have a sample before the litter is moved off the farm. And then the farmer has to have a copy of that to give to the plan writer to be entered into the plan. Another thing we need is FSA maps for every farm, property tax account numbers for every farm. We need soil type off of Web Soil Survey for each farm and each field. We need track numbers for every farm. And then we need the crop to be planted and the yield goal, and whether manure will be applied or not, and how many days to incorporation. In Maryland, you have to incorporate any applied manure within 48 hours unless it's no-till or a hay or pasture.
So, hey, Dennis, one thing, if guys aren't using manure, if you got any guys that you're writing plans for where they just apply fertilizer without any manure?
Yes. Yes.
How do they account for it then? I mean, do they have to list the amount of fertilizer they're using, or do they have to provide sales slips, or how does that work?
Okay. If they get checked out, if a man from MDA comes to your farm, he'll usually call a day or so ahead and says, I'm coming to check out your plan and how you're implementing that. And he can ask for sales slips. He's basically going to see if you have a plan. Some people don't when they show up. And whether the plan was done correctly. And if that's it, then most times they don't bother you any further. But if they come up with something strange, then they start digging deeper and want sales slips and all kinds of documentation.
Another thing, Dennis, that popped into my mind, we're talking manure or actually fertilizer. What about compost? Is that something, too, that has to go through an analysis process before guys can apply it?
Yes, that's treated just like poultry litter.
I see.
They have to have that analyzed. And all this information then gets entered into a computer program that Maryland Department of Agriculture and University of Maryland have come up with. And then this thing spits out what you're allowed to put down, what fertilizer amounts you're allowed to use, NP and K. Mm-hmm. Now, it's interesting if the soil phosphorus level is over a certain level, which is basically around 132 ppm, which Maryland converts that to a fertility index value, FIV. Mm-hmm. If that FIV is 150 or higher, you cannot apply any phosphorus unless you do what's called a phosphorus management tool. That's another headache. Again, that phosphorus management tool, takes into account soil type. You have to go and measure the slope of the field, the percentage of the slope, and the length of the slope. You have to measure the distance to surface water, which could be a ditch, could be a creek or a river or a pond. And if it's just a ditch that doesn't flow all year, you have to measure from the field edge to that ditch.
Wow.
Unbelievable. And that all gets entered in.
So one thing that I know we discussed several years ago is when you're foliar feeding a product like growers, again, our phosphorus level is considered to be on the high side, but we're using such a low amount, but we're putting it directly onto the plant and not to the soil. How does the state of Maryland view that as far as application is concerned?
I'm told that if the nutrient management plan, the phosphorus site index thing says no phosphorus, that's what it means.
Okay.
Not even foliage spray.
I see.
So I do have some people who legally cannot foliage spray or put any phosphorus in the ground.
Right.
So that makes a problem. So, it's pretty tight. Mm-hmm. And they like to get around to interview each farmer once every 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. To see what they're doing. So
the emphasis is on the phosphorus rather than the nitrogen in most cases, Dennis?
Well, they're nitrogen limited also. Like corn is limited to a pound per yield goal.
I gotcha.
Pound of nitrogen per yield goal. Mm-hmm. Soybeans are not allowed to have nitrogen applied. Vegetables, that totally different scenario there. They can apply nitrogen. Usually they can apply some phosphorus. There's a little button to click, says phosphorus limiting plan, and it will allow vegetable growers to apply some phosphorus.
I see.
But not a lot.
One thing I want you to comment a little bit on is the type of customer base you're working with, the variety, and then how guys are using the growers' mineral solutions. Row starter, the foliar feeding, transplant solution, kind of summarize your row crop guys or your vegetable guys and how they're using the product. Okay.
We have a lot of grain is produced here. Corn, soybeans, sorghum, small grains. And we do have quite a bit of produce, vegetables, of watermelon, melon, cantaloupes, that's the big ones. Mm-hmm. We have some orchards, and I do have an orchard customer. He mainly got into it for frost protection. Mm-hmm. and continued from there. But that's the big crops that we have here. Let's see, the grain people, corn, soybeans, they will go in furrow and foliage spray if they're loud. I should say that. The produce people, yeah, they'll use some in transplanting solution, about a gallon and a half per acre, and then they'll foliage spray. All these people with corn and soybean and produce, they'll either use poultry litter or nitrogen for a nitrogen source.
I see.
If they're loud.
Okay.
So,
chat a little bit about the calcium, Dennis. Where you get that from, and is that part of what your customer base is working with?
Yes, there's no limestone available on the shore as far as quarries. The closest rock to the surface here is 5,000 feet down. So all of our limestone comes out of Pennsylvania.
I see.
Central Pennsylvania. Up there at the many quarries that's up there. I had been using the paper mill lime. I found that's the best source of calcium I can find. It has about 780 pounds of available calcium per ton.
Excellent.
The dry lime that's being spread is about 390. And it varies anywhere in between there. Some limes even go down to 200 pounds of calcium per ton.
I see.
And this is talking of high calcium limes.
Right.
Let's see. There is another one that was around for a while, aragonite. That was very good. It has about 800 to 1,000 pounds available calcium per ton.
Where'd you get that from? We got some guys out in the Midwest that are using aragonite, with these biochar products. Where was that coming from? Was that coming from offshore, or was that locally mined, the aragonite?
Yeah, it's mined out by the Bahamas, out of the sea. And it's a very soft product. When you purchase it, it's fairly coarse, but if you put it between your fingers and slide your fingers, it falls apart. So the rain will take it apart. It was barged in to Virginia on the western side of the bay, and then it was barged over here to Seaford, Delaware, and to Pocomoke, Maryland, and that's where the farmer could pick it up. It's expensive. The last I heard, it was around $70-some a ton picked up.
Do you have any guys that were using it, Dennis?
They were, but most of them have decided to use the paper mill lime initially, and then maybe go to aragonite for maintenance.
Sure.
Because they could spread a third of a ton of aragonite to the acre and still get 300-400 pounds of calcium.
I gotcha.
So, but I'm not sure aragonite is even available anymore. That company that had it is going out of business. You don't hear anything about them anymore.
I see. So one thing I want you to comment on a little bit is the composting that's going on. We talked to several guys that have gone in that direction, and their idea is that if they can get enough compost put together, maybe they can walk away from chemical nitrogen. Just give us a short comment on that and what your opinion is, if that's a possibility.
All right, I had 3 people that did that. Their goal is to totally get away from poultry litter and nitrogen. The guy told me, it's been 3-4 years ago. Within 10 years, he wants to be off of those 2 products. So these guys are using cover crops. They're really into heavy cover crops, legume cover crops, and they will plant into that green, or they will roll it down ahead of planting. Now they're getting compost, and they're spreading that usually in the fall or the winter. In Maryland, they can't spread it between during December, January, and February, but they will get on to spreading it March 1.
What are they making the compost from, Dennis? You got just the different products that guys are using?
Yeah, most of the base is poultry litter,
Mm-hmm.
and then they may have some residuals from the poultry processing plants that they put into it.
Mm-hmm.
The one in particular where we were to see, he has limestone piled there all the time. He gets free limestone because the fact that he guarantees them a place that they can dump their trailers 24/7.
I gotcha.
And so he adds a lot of calcium to his compost, and every time he turns it, he adds more.
How long are they fermenting that stuff, Dennis? You have any idea on average?
4 or 5 months.
I see. Okay.
I guess, and they keep turning it. Of course, the volume is reduced, and they keep turning it and keep starting new.
I see.
So, right now they might be starting up again because the supply stream doesn't stop.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So they might be starting up again, and for next fall, they may, if we're going to plant small grains, they'll probably put down compost before they plant the grains, and it is making a difference.
Very good.
So,
is there anything else that you need or want to chat about? To let our audience kind of have an insight into Growers Mineral Solutions or the Growers Program. Something that you'd like to say you've learned over the years?
Well, I think that the university keeps talking about reducing fertilizer consumption, reducing fertilizer runoff into the water.
Mm-hmm.
I think if people just went to the growers program, that would stop real quick. Well, no, it wouldn't. It would take 50 years to get the phosphorus out of the soil that's already here.
Yeah.
We had an old county agent who used to, he farmed some, and he would put down 2 to 3 tons of poultry litter on top of a cover crop of rye, and moldboard plowed it in. And he would always say, as long as you turn it into the ground, you'll not have a phosphorus problem. Phosphorus problem started with no-till.
That's pretty
interesting.
interesting.
Lay on the surface.
That is pretty interesting, man. He'd be removed from that position today very quickly.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure he's alive. He was alive a couple of years ago, but he'd be about 98 or 99 now. So
yeah,
he was a smart guy.
Yeah, very good. Well, Dennis, hey, this is excellent. I really appreciate you getting together with us. I know this is a busy time of year, but if you made time for us and gives our people in the audience an idea of how many areas of the country we're actually working in. So I appreciate very much, Dennis.
Right.
Take care.
All right. Thank you.
This podcast has been brought to you by Growers Mineral. Please visit growersmineral.com.